Hello, my small wonders. Are you ready for a story? I'm Tracy, and I've got a curious book for you today. This one is called Curious George's 3-Minute Stories. Do you know who Curious George is? Would you like to find out? Shall we begin? Meet Curious George and friends. This is George. He is a good little monkey and always very curious. George lives with his friend, the man with the yellow hat, in an apartment in the city. The doorman and Hundley are always there to greet them, even if Hundley is just making sure George doesn't make a mess. George has lots of city friends. He loves to visit Chef Pischetti and his cat Gnocchi at the restaurant. Chef Pischetti makes the best spinach ravioli in town. And his pizza? Perfecto! When George goes to the museum, he always says hi to Professor Wiseman. Sometimes Professor Wiseman even needs special help from George, like the time he went to outer space. And George loves playing with his neighborhood friends Steve and Betsy and their dog, Charky. Oh, look at Charky. He's very cute, isn't he? Sit, Charky. Stay, Charky. Now don't run away, Charky. Sometimes George and the man with the yellow hat visit their home in the country. They have great friends there too, like their neighbor Bill, and the farmers Mr. and Mrs. Renkins, and their granddaughter Allie. Bill knows a lot about a lot, but he especially knows his way around a paper route. And Allie loves to explore, try new things, and dance, just like George. But no matter where he goes or who he's with, George is always very curious about the world around him and ready for an adventure, just as long as he's back home in his bed at the end of the day. Curious George finds a friend. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. George had spent all day outside, exploring and listening to animal sounds. What sound does the duck make? That's right. When George came home, he was surprised to hear a strange sound in his house. He was not alone. But what was making the noise? Could it be coming from the chair? George took a look. Teddy! Now the sound moved. It was not in the living room anymore. It seemed to be farther away. It was in the bathroom. George looked all around for the sound, but he could not find it. He sat down to think. A little ducky helped. Soon the sound was coming from George's bedroom. It seemed to move from one place to another very quickly. George tried to follow it. He did not find anything except a mess. George's friend, the man with the yellow hat, was outside. He heard the chirping too. "That's a cricket," he explained. "He probably wants to get out of our house. Crickets like the light. If you make everything dark, maybe you can get his attention with a flashlight. Once you catch him, you can help him go home." George decided to try. He shut off all the lights and got ready. At the first, he sprang into action. He flipped the switch on his flashlight and caught a cricket. Have you seen a cricket before? Look, he looks really tiny, doesn't he? Then George brought the cricket to the back porch. He opened the bag to let the cricket out. But the cricket did not leave. Where did he go? Oh, do you see him bouncing back in the house? He was already home. Oh, so the cricket has made George's house his new home. Shall we read another one? Let's read Curious George, Circus Act. This is George. He loves to help out at his friend Chef Pischetti's Italian restaurant. Today, Chef had a very special order. It was a large order, and George was excited to help cook and be the delivery monkey. Is that a circus tent? Yes! George was delivering to the Flying Zucchinis, the amazing acrobat troupe. He loved to watch them practice. Leo Zucchini showed off, balancing the pizza box on a long stick. Then Gnocchi the cat arrived. Oh no, cats made Leo sneeze. Gnocchi, please don't get too close. Up above, Claire Zucchini was balancing on the high wire. George wanted to try too, but the mop was not a good balancing pole. Move your hand closer to the heavy end, Claire said. Phew, that was much better. He almost slipped, didn't he? That night was the Zucchini's first big tent show. The audience oohed and ahed. Ooh. Suddenly, Gnocchi the cat walked out onto the high wire and Leo started to sniffle and lose his balance. Uh-oh, don't sneeze! George came to the rescue. Gnocchi turned away from the acrobats and jumped onto George's balancing pole. George moved his hand closer to the heavy side of the pole to keep his balance, just as he had done with the mop. The show was saved. Afterward, the acrobats made George an official zucchini. Claire told the man with the yellow hat and their friend the chef that George was a natural. Whoops, but maybe George should stick to the high wire. Oh no, look, Curious George has jumped on that huge ball and knocked over Chef Pischetti. Shall we do one more? This one is called Curious George Goes Bowling. I haven't been bowling in a really long time. Have you? Friday night was bowling night for George and the man with the yellow hat. This Friday was extra special. It was the night of the bowling championship. Mr. and Mrs. Rankins and the Quints were bowling against the man. But who would win? Who do you think's going to win? After the game, Mr. Rankins announced,
"It's a tie. That means there will be a tiebreaker tomorrow night."
George was so excited.
Want to use my practice ball to roll one, George? I never let anyone use my lucky yellow ball. It's the only one I ever hit a strike with, said the man.
George rolled, but the ball went into the gutter. Oh no, a gutter ball! George always seemed to roll them. The next morning, George decided he wanted to help out and polished the man's lucky yellow bowling ball for him. George lifted the ball out of the bag and gave it a test roll. It rolled really well, but then it kept on rolling. It's rolled into the mud. Yuck! If that ball didn't need polishing before, it definitely needed it now. George worked hard. That kind of cleaning takes real monkey elbow grease. Then the clean ball needed a test drive. George rolled it on the smooth, hilly driveway. But it was a little too smooth and hilly. George grabbed his wagon and rushed to save the ball. It looks like he just saved it in time, too. Later that evening, the man rushed to get his bowling bag and shoes.
"George,"
said the man,
"are you ready? We're running late."
they were just about to drive to Bowl Moor Lanes when George realized that the man had taken the wrong bag. His lucky ball was in the other bag. George jumped out of the car and ran to get the ball and returned to find that the man, thinking George was still in the car, was already gone. George climbed a tree to think. The man needed his lucky bowling ball, but how could George get it to him? He had an idea. From the tree, the road to Bowmore Lanes looked a little like a big bowling lane with gutters. And if there was one thing George was good at, it was rolling gutter balls. With George's help, the man's lucky yellow bowling ball rolled uphill and down. Finally, it rolled right into the parking lot of Bowmore Lanes, and then through the front door and right toward the bowling lanes. The ball rolled past the man with the yellow hat and down the lane, and knocked over all the pins.
"Oh boy, he rolled that ball so fast I didn't even see him wind up," said Mr. Rankins.
Everyone celebrated, especially George. It was his best roll ever. Well, George definitely got up to some interesting adventures, didn't he? I think we'll have to stop there and carry on another time. Are you curious like George? I'm very curious. I'm always thinking, why did that person say that? Why did that person do that? And how does that person feel? I always have many, many questions, and I'm sure you do too. If you liked these stories, I hope you'll join me for more Curious George's 3-minute stories soon. Until our next set of stories, my small wonders. Bye-bye.